Chair.
Organ bleeding eh.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I may.
Tapusin ko lang, ma'am. Sandali po.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much and good morning to our DOJ family. I'm sorry. Nagko-confuse ako sa oras talaga rin.
Magandang tanghali po.
Magandang tanghali po, Sir Secretary and the DOJ family. Of course, under the new normal, things and operations of offices have changed. And what I noticed is that almost all courts, coming from me, who is going from court to court, appearing because of Dengvaxia cases, and wala naman talagang basis, so it's being dismissed. But then what I am seeing is that the difficulty in internet connectivity of your courts and your offices, plus the risk that the judges and the personnel of the courts are being exposed to because complainants and the accused are being made to gather, and it's a very congested room. Wala po talagang physical distancing, especially that when they schedule, ilang kaso yan. So let's say if you have 12 cases and the room is like just one corner at siksikan kayo lahat doon. What happens is that courts are now becoming petri dishes for COVID transmission. So what's the plan of the department with regards to this?
Mr. Chair,
Secretary Guevara.
on these matters, we take the cue from the Supreme Court, no? Kung ano po ang inuutos ng Supreme Court on the matter of holding physically hearings or kung i-conduct by video conferencing, we just follow Congresswoman kung ano po ang gustong mangyari ng Supreme Court. Kasi po ang aming mga prosecutors in the criminal cases will just have to adjust as to the manner by which the Supreme Court would wish to conduct trials, whether physically or online. Nag-a-adjust lang po kami.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Honorable Secretary, for that answer, because I do understand that you have to wait for the let's say the safety protocols that the Supreme Court will be coming out. But I was thinking because of, with the interest of time, what if a body or a task force be formed between DOJ, Supreme Court, probably other agencies, maybe DOH, DILG, so that this will be addressed. Because every day of delay is another asymptomatic transmission occurring within the halls of your municipal or even regional courts. At sana po ang mabigyan ito ng well, of course, there's allocation and a budgetary implication in providing for internet connectivity. And if you do physical distancing naman inside, it's very impossible to put all, I don't know if it will be a matter of scheduling, but again, there will be cases that can be done online, and then can be cases that can be resolved there. Because like, for instance, the scientists, the medical professionals, and the doctors who are being, well, unfairly accused, we are all exposed. And they're all exposed. Siyempre, pag nandun sa korte, then the next day, yun naman pala, you'll receive a message that the patient or the hospital you've been to had a patient. Ang hirap. Because we are tied with our responsibility to appear to court. We do agree with that. But we are also very much conscious that unknowingly we might be transmitting to other people in that area.
Mr. Chair,
Secretary.
if I may react, I think that's a very good suggestion, Congresswoman. And there's actually a forum where we can actually take up this matter with the Supreme Court and also with the law enforcement institutions. So it's called the Justice Sector Coordinating Committee. So probably instead of just taking a parang less active role in making proposals on how court hearings should be held, we can the DOJ can probably take up this matter with the Supreme Court and the DILG, which is also a part of the Joint Justice Sector Coordinating Committee, so that we can address your concern. I thank you very much for that suggestion, Congresswoman.
And next, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I know this is not their concern, but
Representative
then
Galit.
to take advantage of that Justice Coordinating Committee, maybe an avenue can also be done wherein testing will be made available to people in the courts. And similar to the fact that I've seen the expanded testing on COVID testing, BJMP personnel are not included. I didn't see them as frontliners, but actually, since they ferry inmates from one area to another area, they're exposed. And mind you, what we are seeing with COVID infection now is that asymptomatic transmission really happens because the asymptomatic patients, although they don't have any symptoms, they have a very low CT value. And the cycle threshold, the CT value, is inversely proportional to the load of the virus. The lower the CT value, the higher the load of the virus. And what I'm saying is that patients are actually asymptomatic in the working age, have a very high viral load. Very low CT values that we have never seen before. My point in this is that we, the Department of Justice, and if Congress needs to allocate that budget, there should be an avenue wherein testing will be made available to people in BJMP, the BJMP personnel, even people in your offices. Because we have been used to a mechanism where there is a face-to-face interaction for every government transaction. Even the voluminous documents that people has to submit, even in DOJ, sir, if I may, I actually brought it as a concern before, pero ganun pa rin eh. Hindi pa rin tinatanggap yung soft copy. You have to print voluminous documents. So, you know, the one is disease of the if it coughs, and then it goes to the office. It's very tedious to be disinfecting documents. So if there are a lot of things that we can immediately implement, because each office and all of us to has to be part of curtailing the spread of COVID-19. Another thing is that naiintindihan po namin kasi dun sa ibang korte or kunyari dito sa BGMP, may isang na-expose lang. All the other personnel are contact traced. They're having a hard time where to be tested. It's easy to look for a testing center, but the cost of testing is actually eating their pockets. Kasi nga, wala tayong price ceiling unlike other countries. And mind you, in most countries, in China, COVID, the PCR swab testing has a maximum price of $20. I think in Korea and Singapore, it's maximum of $40. I've been very vocal about that since March. Unfortunately, in our country, we allowed the escalation of prices. And this is a pandemic. Every person tested will actually help us in our response. So I know that the DOJ is not really the proper agency, but then if you have a huge population of BJMP personnel and even the prisoners and people working in your offices, if you will put out a budget with a maximum COVID testing PCR price of 1,500 or 1,700, and I'm sure the hospitals and the laboratories will still gain profit from that. Pwede pong gawin. Moving forward, since it's also needed because most of your people are asymptomatic, maybe you can explore pooled testing, pooled PCR testing among personnel among BJMP offices, not only in Metro Manila, but in the provinces as well. That would probably cost you between 500 to 1,000 pesos per person, depending on the location of the office. If I may, Mr. Chair, Honorable Secretary, the Department of Justice, by its name alone, dapat po nating bigyan hustisya ang lahat. But I cannot swallow it, seeing the injustice, the health injustice on the people of your office, of your department, being exposed constantly simply because they have to do their jobs. Second question, Mr. Chair, madali lang po ito. Honorable Secretary, I know and I do believe and I agree with you that the mandate of the Department of Justice is to uphold the rule of law. And in upholding the rule of law, may I inquire if this also pertains to um, proper disposition of government funds in among the offices under your umbrella?
Mr. Chair,
Secretary Guevara.
my answer to the question is a very resounding yes, because the matter of disposition of funds is governed by law. And therefore, because that is really the mandate of the Department of Justice to uphold the rule of law, then it is necessary and mandated that the proper disposition of funds, not only within the DOJ family, but within the entire government, national, local, should be able, should comply with all necessary laws pertaining to budget and disposition or disbursement of their funds.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Secretary, Mr. Chair, for that. Because I
Last-
remember it right.
Last question.
Yes, I remember it right. Can I have last two questions, Mr. Chair? Thank
Sige na, basta ikaw.
thank you. If I remember it right, forensic activities is under the National Bureau of Investigation. Am I correct in stating and reiterating your response during the previous budget hearings, Honorable Secretary, that it is not within the ambit of the Public Attorney's Office?
Mr. Chair, that was, I think, resolved somehow last year when the budget for forensic medicine or forensic activities that were requested by the Public Attorney's Office were not granted and were instead given to the National Bureau of Investigation, that being the primary purpose of the NBI, but not of the Public Attorney's Office. That's what I remember last year,
So,
Congresswoman.
yeah, thank you very much, Secretary. Meaning, forensic medicine is not a mandate of the Public Attorney's Office, but of the National Bureau of Investigation.
Mr. Chair, that seems to be the ruling of the committee on appropriations last year.
Yeah, and I believe, Honorable Chair, Honorable Secretary, that this was even affirmed by the President himself when he signed the budget and put a statement in the General Appropriations Act of 2020.
Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the reason why I asked this, Mr. Chair, Honorable Secretary, is that many doctors have called my attention and have seek support from me that we are not concerned about doing autopsies right and left. We are more concerned about the public health impact. Because if you exhume a patient and if you do an autopsy, if you open the body of the patient, protocols should be in place because it's a public health scare. What if that patient has a viral infection? What if that patient has something? It can be COVID, it can be non-COVID, but medical science in our books has repeatedly reiterated that autopsies are only conducted by pathologists done in secure areas so that you won't spread the infection to other people, to employees of the Public Attorney's Office, to even your prosecutors and the media for that matter. Are you aware, Honorable Secretary, that forensic examinations and allegedly autopsies are still being undertaken by a certain Dr. Erfe, who claims to be a forensic specialist of the Public Attorney's Office? And second, is this allowed? Since you already mentioned that it is not within their mandate. And second, where are these forensic examinations being conducted? Because we need to be sure about the disposal of the human remains that should be done, and even the protection of the people that are being made and asked to do this. It's a public health menace and it's a public health violation.
Mr. Chair,
Secretary, before the good secretary would reply, the chair did not just give Congresswoman Garin 2 questions, mga 6 na yun. Pero I'll give you one more. Secretary Guevara.
Mr. Chair, these are operational matters pertaining to the Public Attorney's Office. The DOJ itself would not have direct personal knowledge about these operations. So if the chairman would please allow me to refer the matter to the Public Attorney's Office, I think the Chief Public Attorney is joining us in this meeting, and she may be in the best position to answer Congresswoman Garin's question.
The Chief of the Public Attorney's Office is recognized. You may now respond to the query of the Honorable Janette Garin.
Good morning, sirs. Good afternoon. It's already past 12. With the permission of the Honorable Chair, I know Congresswoman Garin, medyo she's one among the respondents who have been sued by the parents regarding the Dengvaxia cases. That's why interesado siya na malaman kung ano nangyayari. Pero yung pag-mention niya kay Dr. Erpe, never siyang nagpakilala kung pathologist. Siya po ay forensic consultant na inauthorize si Secretary Bongkodin way back 2004 or 16 years ago sa mga forensic and medical legal cases ng PAO. Dokumentado po ito. And after 5 years, ang DBM po ay nag-create ng 8 posisyon para sa Forensic Laboratory Division. 4 na medical legal officer, medical specialist, at merong pang dentist, medtech, laboratory aid, and nurse. Funded po ito ng DBM. In consonance with the General Appropriations Act, every year po authorized ang DBM, may particular provision sa GAA. Every year yan, ulit-ulit, na pwede mag-create ang DBM at ang presidente ng mga items. So meron po tayong medical legal officer, kagaya ng mga nag-autopsy sa NBI na medical legal officer at medical specialist. At yung pong sinasabing autopsy na yan ay part of the forensic services ng PAO pursuant ni sa directive ng DOJ na mag-extend ng legal assistance which necessarily includes forensic interpretation of the evidence. Firmado po ito ni Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre noong December 12, 2017, particularly subject authority to represent possible victims of Dengvaxia-related injuries, illnesses, and deaths. Alam po ni Secretary Aguirre na may forensic laboratory ang PAO since 2010. Nag-inaugurate po niyan si Secretary de Panadera noon, si Father Robert Reyes, si Bishop Efren Tindero, inaugurate po yung aming forensic lab. Last year po, nag-move ang oposisyon, minority, sa pangunguna ng mga, nandiyan si Kong Elchel, hindi na po kami nagreklamo, hindi na kami nagpunta sa korte, sapagkat binawasan po kami ng budget, bagaman nasa NEP na, para pambili ng gamit. Masakit po sa amin yun dahil ibinalaan na po ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte para sa PAO sa NEP, na-scrap, hindi na po kami nagpunta sa court kasi napakaganda po nung comments and observation ng mahal na Pangulo. At nasusulat po dito sa GAA 2019, comments and observation sa President's Affirmation Message, may sinabi ho siya dito eh. Accordingly, it is inferred that the limitation, yung inserted po na yun, na hindi pwedeng gumamit ng MOM Forensic Lab, does not in any way prohibit the PAO from performing its legitimate functions under the existing laws. Yung pong forensic medical doctors po namin, created by law yan, pursuant to GAA 2018 and 2019. Anong gagawin mo ng mga doktor na ito? Yung mga medical legal officers po namin, tatanga na lang po ba dyan sa, sa laboratorio? Sinusweldohan mo sila ng gobyerno. At sa in fairness po, nakapagsamba po ng 57 criminal cases behind the deaths of Dengvaxia vaccinists, ang mga magulang, meron pa pong natitirang 100 deaths na pwede pong isampa. At ako po hindi ako nagdidesisyon kung isasampa. Ang nagdidesisyon po yung Special Panel of Public Attorneys na mga elite group po yan, na mga lawyers, senior, kung isasampa po sa ating DOJ, National Prosecution Service sa mga kaso, at kung may corresponding civil cases. Ayun po si Congressman Garin, matagal ko na pong kasama dahil matagal na po akong pouchip, nagkikita po kami na, nangingitian kami. Wala po akong masamang loob sa kanya, bagkus humingi po ng hustisya ang mga magulang na namatayan. Sinasabi nila, walang informed consent, walang diagnostic test bago binakunahan ng mga anak nila, nag-mass indiscriminate vaccination before election, at nasa ebidensya naman po, tumutugma na yung diniklara pala ng sanopi na side effects na nakamamatay sa FDA noon, yung multi-organ bleeding, viscerotrophism, neurotropism, brain bleeding, enlargement, edema, increase in severity in dengue disease. Eh, nakita po ng mga doktor natin na organ bleeding eh.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I may
lang, ma'am, sandali po. Kaya po patuloy pa rin.
May we request the Honorable Public Attorney's offer to give due office,
sa batas.
due respect to the chairman of the committee, because I believe my question only needed a short answer. First, let me clarify. I was
Yes,
not,
I think for the continued reply, maybe
because I
the
have other
office of
questions.
the chief of the public attorney's office can furnish the committee on appropriation. I will now give again the floor to the representative from Iloilo province, Honorable Janette Garin, for her follow-up question. And would this be the last, or?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, allow me to comment on the statements of the Public Attorney's Office. At let me move to my last question with regards to BJMP.
Yes, your comment, then proceed to your last question.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Unang-una po, ang tanong ko is hindi na kung pathologist ba o hindi si Erfe. Ang tanong ko po is if the Public Attorney's Office has the mandate to conduct forensic examinations. And Mr. Chair, what I stated is that in the laws of science, not only in the Philippines, but all over the world, autopsies are only conducted by duly licensed pathologists. My next comment, Mr. Chair, with due courtesy, it was very clear she was instructed by the former DOJ Secretary Aguirre, to give legal assistance, not to be the doctor and not to replace doctors and the Philippine Medical Association. Lastly, Mr. Chair, maliwanag pa sa sanag ng buwan ang aking tanong. Ang tanong ko po, pwede bang gamitin ang pondo ng Public Attorney's Office sa mga kaliwat kanan na autopsy, forensic examination, to which the Honorable Secretary replied that in the law, it is not stated as their mandate. It is the mandate of the PNP. So we have the PNP Crime Laboratory, and we also have the National Bureau of Investigation. And sad to say, yun ngang tanong kanina ni Attorney Acosta. Meron siyang mga doktor, meron siyang mga tao sa kanyang forensic lab, at sayang naman, hindi po sayang, Mr. Chair, Honorable Secretary. Because if these people are truly qualified, and if these people are really qualified to do forensic medicine, then by all means, they can easily be transferred to the PNP Crime Lab or to the NBI. Bakit patuloy na andun sila sa banner? Because I'm not only referring to Dengvaxia cases. I'm referring to several scientific findings where their autopsy is in contrast to the autopsy findings of our government pathologists. Kaya nalilito ngayon ang mga korte. Now, Mr. Chair, if I may I move that the statements of Persida Aosta with regards to the statement must discriminate vaccination and the fact that there were deaths, neurotropism, viscerotropism, be stricken off the records. As a medical doctor and as a vaccinologist who was trained in Geneva, I am very much aware that neurotropism and viscerotropism cannot be seen in any dead patient. Why? Because these are symptoms you see in the course in the wards. By course in the wards, parang lagnat po yan. If you say fever, the patient has fever. When a patient dies, hindi mo na po makukuha ang temperatura ng lagnat niya. So how can you diagnose neurotropism and viscerotropism in an autopsy? No legitimate doctor in their right mind will do that. Honorable Secretary, you can ask any medical association, and they will always tell you that neurotropism and viscerotropism are course in the ward's observation. Meaning, you have to get the data in the hospital kasi ang ibig sabihin ng viscerotropism, namamaga yung lining ng internal organs. And this does not happen in dengue. This happens in yellow fever. And while it is a complication of a yellow fever vaccine, the World Health Organization allowed its use in Africa, even us. Whenever I go to Africa, I always have a yellow fever vaccine because it is endemic in that area, because you weigh the pros and the cons. So ayoko nang pumunta pa sa marami at masalimuot.
Mr. Chairman,
because-
I would like to second the motion of Congresswoman Garin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
The chair's order, the chair directs our stenographers to strike that of the record, the statements requested by the Honorable Garin.
And if I may, if will the Honorable Secretary look into this, because the Public Attorney's Office has a lot of tasks to do. Marami po akong kilala na walang abogado at hindi kayang magbayad ng abogado. We have a lot of people who needs to be helped out by the Public Attorney's Office. Why waste funds on medical aspects? We can give that to the NBI. We can give that to the PNP Forensic Lab. Because, Your Honor, my fear here is, I welcome all the cases. Even if she files 1,000 cases, I'm not afraid because my conscience is clear and I speak about science. But my worry here is, where are these being conducted? Because with the current pandemic, what if that person has COVID? Our protocol is we immediately cremate HIV patients, we cremate infectious patients like COVID, we even cremate patients who come in with unknown illnesses because we want to protect the whole community.
Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, we have
Secretary Guevara.
yes, Mr. Chair, we have duly noted the concerns of Congresswoman Garin, and in fairness, Mr. Chair, in fairness to the Public Attorney's Office, I would like to say that this particular office has been doing its job fairly well, very well, as a matter of fact. It has assisted so many people who do not have the capability to pay for their own lawyers in court. As a matter of fact, I think the PAO is one of the offices under the Department of Justice whose budget allocation has been proposed or recommended to be increased, precisely because of the recognition of the good work that the PAO has been doing. I understand that this is like kink. The matter about doing its own forensic medicine task is a kink in the functions of the Public Attorney's Office. But by and large, the totality of what the PAO has done, in my opinion, could be considered as really very well, very satisfactory. And I personally request also that the amount being requested by the PAO be given favorable consideration by the committee.
Okay,
Yeah,
the
Mr.
chair takes note of the recommendation of the Secretary of the Department of Justice.
Mr.
One
Chair,
last more.
last comment.
Okay,
For clarificatory, for purposes of clarification, Honorable Secretary, I am not geared towards reducing the budget of the Public Attorney's Office because, in fact, even my sister, who used to be a PAO lawyer for a long time, it's just that she decided to pursue another position in government. And I have many relatives who are PAO lawyers. Let me make that clear. And my point here, that's basically the reason why we don't want the office tainted. Yes, we increased their budget because we need more lawyers to defend our helpless kababayans. But on the other hand, we cannot allow abuses of a PAO official in creating an office that is in contrast with the NBI and the PNP. Because we are talking here about the rule of law. And by rule of law, we are sure and we know that it is not the mandate of the Public Attorney's Office. My question, Honorable Chair, if I may, can the Honorable Secretary look into the qualifications of these people? Will they qualify in the NBI Forensic Lab or even in the PNP Crime Laboratory? Because if not, then there is a problem. And I believe that your office should be resolving this issue. This is taxpayers' money. Hindi natin sinasabing bawasan, hindi natin sinasabing tanggalan, pwede ngang dagdagan pa, and our PAO lawyers are actually exposed to a lot of hazards. But my point is, there can also be no abuse of wanton spending just because you believe in a certain doctor as an expert, but the Philippine Society of Pathologists, the PMA, and us doctors do not believe in his capability. And hindi po pwedeng nagdodoktor-doktoran yung isang abogado.
Okay.
Next statement, Mr. Chair, on the issue of BJMP.
That would be the last.
Yes, sorry for that. This was really my bigger concern. When you go to, even DOJ offices, when you go to BJMP, all their files at lahat, napaka-obsolete po nung kanilang mga computers. And if you are handling voluminous prisoners database, maybe a huge chunk of budget from DICT should be specifically earmarked with equipping the DOJ umbrella organizations. Even the Bureau of Immigration is somehow medyo techy, no? But not really at par with what is expected. And this is one aspect na palagi natin kinakalimutan. What if all of a sudden we just had COVID and everybody has to do everything online? Masunog lang yung isang opisina, masunog yung isang kulungan, wala ka ng files. So how much is the IT budget for the DOJ attached agencies offices? And if the DOJ is very much willing that this budget should be increased, maybe not this year, but with the incoming years, or if we can have other sources of fund like supplemental budget, baka pwedeng dito gamitin.
Okay. That's the
Mr. Chair.
Secretary Guevara.
Yes, we have taken note again of Congresswoman Garin's concern about the BJMP, but I just want to clarify that the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, or BJMP, is under the Department of the Interior and Local Government, not under the Department of Justice. So I will communicate all of the concerns of Congresswoman Garin to Secretary Anyo. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Noted also by the
Yeah.
chair because we
Yes,
finished
yes.
their budget briefing a few days ago. The
Yeah.
ILG and BJMP is together with that.
Yeah,
So thank you
Mr.
very
Chair, I
much.
stand corrected on that. It's
Yes.
true. I was actually,
Anyway,
yeah.
the Committee on Appropriations will take note of that. That is a very good suggestion.
And the
from the
IT system
Honorable
of the prosecutors' offices, so that
Yes.
we won't have to be sending voluminous documents in DOJ.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you very
thank
much.
you. Thank you very much, Honorable Janette Garin.